Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation, Advanced AdWords QA with Google. A big welcome to everyone on the call today, as well as our AdWord panelists and specialists. For those of you who have attended ActiveDEMAND presentations before, the format of this one is a little bit different. We'll be diving right into a moderated Q&A session where our panelists will be looking at the specific aspects of AdWord management as well as best practices for agencies. A little later in the presentation, we will be diving a bit deeper and talking about strategies agencies can use to convert AdWord click-throughs into leads, specifically using call tracking and marketing automation. With that, I'd like to introduce our panelists today. We have Chetan Clausen, Agency Development Manager at Google, as well as Martha Heath, Google AdWords Agency Account Strategist, and our very own Brian Neufeld, Chief Marketing Officer here at ActiveDEMAND. Welcome everyone, and thanks for coming. And with that, I will hand things over to Brian, and we will jump right into our first question.
To essentially maximize the impact of quality score, things like path-through relevance. You want your keyword to be in the ad copy. You want it to be on the landing page speed. That's a factor of quality score. All of these components Google sort of takes in tandem and factors them into the equation. But the answer is essentially quality score is a huge impactor in terms of the cost and kind of the performance of your ads and campaigns.
And I have something to add to that as well. One of the elements of a good quality score is expected click-through rate. So how Google would measure expected click-through rate is some factors like ad relevance, but also if they see that you have site links, that's something else that kind of factors into an expected click-through rate, as well as relevant search terms. All these things kind of go into an expected click-through rate.
You got it.
Great, thanks very much. Moving on. I should mention again, I'm putting the names of those that asking the question. So Sandra's asking this next question: what are the best practices for overall AdWords account build and structure, regardless of vertical?
Okay, so when I start to build a campaign, I look at putting as much data as I can in to start with. So when I'm doing my ad groups, I'm trying to do them pretty granular based off of client goals, as well as website, how the website structure is. But I'm trying to do granular ad groups as well as ads. I'm doing at least 2 to 3 ads per ad group. And I'm starting off with anywhere from 6 to 15 keywords per ad group. And why I'm doing this is because you're trying to put as much data as you can in to begin with, so that you can continue to optimize to see what's working and what's not working. So when you start with kind of a heavier load, it's easier to go through and optimize. Well, this ad's not working, these keywords aren't working, let's pause these and kind of compile data from there.
That's a great point. And I might add on very quickly that in terms of approaching the account structure successfully, we also have to take into account a number of other things. For example, targeting, the budget and goals, kind of the geographic area there, the conversion goals that are sort of needed by the advertiser. Let's face it, if we're working on a budget of $10 a day and we're trying to go after all of Canada or all of the United States, that's probably not going to work out too well, right? So we, at that point, we're almost, hey, let's focus on getting a click, right? So in my mind, we have to kind of make sure that in terms of structure, everything's in place in terms of that, and that we understand exactly what the conversion goals might be. If we're going after 100 phone calls, specifically, we're probably not going to get there with a geographic area that's as wide as Canada on such a small budget. Another quick thing too, if the goal in most cases is to maximize conversions, what we see many inexperienced advertisers doing is running, say, just pure search, right? The goal is to maximize conversions. I often ask, hey, why aren't we running remarketing as well? Why aren't we running remarketing lists for search ads too? Customer match. There's all kinds of latest developments that are on the platform. We don't have a whole lot of time to get into that, but let's face it. There's multiple strategies that need to be in play, and that's obviously something that JumpDEMAND can get into.
Great. Beyond standard campaign optimization, what are some advanced strategies for long-term success and ROI?
No, that's a great question right there. The number one thing, and this applies across the board, not just advanced campaigns, but really any campaign that runs, that's essentially having the dual combination of conversion tracking and analytics. That we see so many campaigns, even high-level international campaigns that quite simply don't have the proper tools needed to address kind of the data that comes in. So without any kind of level of conversion tracking analytics, it's going to be rather difficult to approach how effective or ineffective the campaign is. Additionally, too, let's say someone is running conversion tracking. Well, there's multiple levels of that. If we're going after phone calls, it's not enough just to have, a call extension. It's not enough just to have the website form submission. We need to kind of be tracking on every level, every aspect of that. And then certainly you're going to have different elements of that depending on the industry, whether that's e-commerce, retail, say versus the law industry. But at the end of the day, in order to effectively analyze the data, we have to have those solid conversion and analytics numbers in place prior to the campaign even launching.
Good, awesome. Thank you. Yes. All right. Hey, Douglas, you're asking a question about agency accounts. We've got that later on in the slide, so we'll get to your question. And Joe, you just sent something about niche businesses. I'm going to try to work that in here, so be patient with us. So, hey, Devin, thanks for this question. The next one comes from James. How well defined can a keyword be? For instance, instead of chocolate, can it be 10-pound chocolate?
That's a fantastic question. So the beauty of AdWords is obviously you can be as specific or as broad as you want to be, right? With specific regard to that example just presented, with the match types we have, we can go broad, in which the system will essentially be very, very long tail, very kind of reaching out with plurals and obviously synonyms and different kinds of relative words there. But at the same time, on the other side of the spectrum, if we want to be very exact, we have that capability too. Whether that's matching out to an exact, very text word for word, letter for letter keyword that we want to go after, or if we want to just go after a phrase or a combination of loosely related phrases too, we have the entire spectrum at our disposal in terms of that.
And I'll add to that that my recommendation would be not to start off with exact match and really exact until you get more of an idea of what's performing for you. That's more of a later on optimization technique that I would go into. I personally like to start my campaigns with Broad Match Modifier. It opens up the variation and search queries, but it also weeds out some of the irrelevant clicks as well.
Exactly. So to answer your question directly, James, instead of chocolate, can it be 10-pound chocolate? Yes, absolutely.
Great, excellent, thanks. All right. We got lots of questions coming through, guys. I'm going to try to get to them. Grace, I see yours, but we're going to keep going through what we've got here and do our best. Nils asks, when should I use Conversion Optimizer or Enhanced Campaign Bidding? What is the difference?
Conversion Optimizer should be used after you get at least 15 conversions within the first 30 days, and actually as well as ECPC. Same kind of thing. You should not be using that in at least 15 conversions within the first 30 days. The main difference would be that Conversion Optimizer, the system goes very aggressively after the conversion, and ECP, you can kind of set a limit on that, so it won't go out of your budget.
Great, thanks. Next comes from Margaret. What is a good tool for analyzing the AdWords traffic?
Sure. Now that's a great question right there. Obviously, within the native AdWords campaign interface, we have all manner of being able to kind of deep dive into the data. Obviously, with the advanced audience we have here, I'm sure everyone's been through the modified columns in which we have everything from impression share metrics all the way to analytics after linking in an account. But to answer the question, a great tool for analyzing that, we quite simply use all of the native tools within the campaign interface. Certainly there's lots of other sort of ways to approach that. We know that there's a capability within the AdWords interface where we can actually download reports in a graphical format. Yeah, so that, obviously, AdWords kind of is a self-contained platform in which we can really approach that, but there's lots of other tools as well out there that are sort of, APIs and whatnot, but we can't really get into those here on the scope of this meeting, but, hopefully that shines a light in that direction.
And I would just add that each each column and each report kind of tells you something different about your campaign. So how you look at the numbers and analyze your numbers is kind of, based on a personal thing. But when you look at search impression share and you see you have a low search impression share, that's going to just tell you I have a lot of room to grow in this industry, in this market. So each number, each column is definitely going to tell you something different about your campaign performance.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks, Margaret, for the question. Kathy is asking, on the analytics, why are so many visits from not set, and how do I define not set?
Yes, I was hoping this question would come up. So essentially, now that in particular is a analytics tech question. Just to kind of refine the scope of our team's involvement. Now, we deal obviously on the AdWords side, and we can analyze the scope of analytics traffic vis-a-vis the AdWords campaign interface. This particular question is a very in-depth tech question on the analytics side. This is to say that there's two sides here. One side AdWords, on the other side the analytics account, which my team doesn't exactly deal within. But my best advice here, since it is kind of analytics related, obviously we have a support team here. It's kind of a little known fact that there is, in fact, a live team that supports with analytics walkthroughs and training and whatnot. And this question is centered to that, which is obviously the 8662 Google number that everyone is so familiar with and loves. Yep.
Okay. Great, thanks. Douglas is asking us, how can I have one AdWords account for multiple clients? As an ad agency, it is very time-consuming to keep track of multiple accounts, and I think someone else had asked that question too. So, can you comment on that, please, guys?
Absolutely. Yep. So essentially, there's two types of accounts, really. One is your straight-up AdWords account. The other is what we call an MCC, My Client Center. Now, this type of account is exactly what's described here. You have the capability to sort of house multiple AdWords accounts within one My Client Center. You can create them at will. You can remove them at will. You can link it up. Let's say you're bringing on board another account, you can just link it right in and house it within the main MCC structure. So the quick and easy answer here is an MCC account will give you that ability to have multiple AdWords accounts under one roof.
Perfect. And sorry, just how do you actually get an MCC account? Is that, I've got one, but I don't remember how I got it. Is that something that someone can just sign up for online, or do they have to talk to Google and have them do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially, if you go to google.com/myclientcenter, that would be sort of the sign up now, the landing page. But to answer the other part of your question, you can certainly always rely on the support of Google. Again, 8662 Google, and someone can walk you through the process as well.
Perfect, great. Doug, I hope that answers your question. Thanks for asking it. So Leeview asks, why is there no export to Google Sheets from AdWords?
You know what, I ask that question almost daily, and my tech guys always tell me we don't know. Actually, no, just kidding. We know that there's always development kind of going on. There's lots of capabilities that are in development. Hopefully that's one of them there. Quite simply, within the native campaign interface, we can download reports, I believe in Excel and the Excel format, and I believe PDF as well. Hopefully Google Sheets is on the way. I don't really have an answer for that, but certainly, we know Google is always working on stuff, and when there's information, you can always count on that being released publicly.
Okay, great, thanks. Kenny is asking, is having hundreds of keywords, ads, and ad groups bad for clients who spend $250 to $500 a month in AdWords?
Now that's a fantastic question, because now the hypothetical budget range here is, say, $250 to $500 a month in AdWords. Now, what we know is that within each industry, let's face it, there's demand, right? There are thousands, hundreds, millions of people that are searching in relative to geographic areas, relative to all manner of keywords and things of that sort. So the quick and dirty point here is, okay, so $250 to $500 a month. Well, let's say that you're let's say that you're a lawyer, and if you obtain a client, you could make $3K in one go, or obviously, let's face it, there's money to be made, right? So paying $5 for a click, that's kind of, say, maybe a going rate in some areas, or we often see them be even higher than that, or lower than that. So the quick answer here is it's going to depend on the geographic area targeted. It's going to depend on the keyword. As far as whether it's bad having too many keywords, well, I think there's always kind of an upper limit on that, right? For one reason alone. If you have too many keywords in a limited budget, not all these keywords are going to run. We're going to get skewed data. Some of the keywords won't even be able to even trigger an ad. So we're going to be limited right off the bat in that way. And it's the same for the opposite, right? If we have too much budget and we're just using one or two keywords or too little, obviously there's going to be a very low search impression share count there, and it's just going to be bad. So the long answer, the short answer here is, build for what makes sense for the account, build according to strategy. We often define kind of different products arranged by ad group, right? Let's say if you're a lawyer and you've got one branch that's malpractice, that's going to be an ad group that may, maybe have 6 to 15 important keywords. And then say here's injury attorneys within another. So, again, it just depends on the nature of the campaign. But hopefully you gain a sense that it is relative to your budget, your geo-target area, and the strategy for the campaign.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, like you said, unless it's a very intricate campaign. But like you said, some of the numbers are going to be skewed with that kind of budget, and all your ads are not going to show up. So.
Great, thanks, guys. Next, Eric is asking, what is the most effective way to determine if a bid should be increased or decreased?
That's a great question. You want to talk about it?
Sure. Well, first I would say that we know through historical data that the top 3 positions are the most likely to convert on a campaign. So depending on a budget, the conversion goal, and really what's important to the client, I would say that would be the best way to increase or decrease. There's times that, I've worked with real estate and they're trying to sell specific houses in a specific area. So we're going to go ahead and bid very aggressively for top positions for these specific keywords, while other areas might not be as important. So it's really depending on how aggressive you want your conversions to be, how much you want to increase your conversion based on your budget. So I would say that it is very important to be in the top 3 to get conversions, but depending on your goals, that's kind of how I determine where I want to bid for top position and very aggressively.
Thank you. Krista's asking, have you found using Broad Match Modifier as a match type in place of both broad and phrase is effective consolidation while still obtaining comparable quality and quantity of search volume? Did you catch that?
That's a great question. I would say that it is a great way to have that comparable. Yes, the answer is yes, it is a comparable way to kind of go after the kind of the same approach that you can get, say, from a broader approach to, say, phrase or exact. But again, this comes down to the knowledge that we have about how people search, right? For a law industry campaign where we need to be hyper-focused about how we reach people, those strategies might call for hyper-focused match types, right? Now, on the flip side, and this is especially true of all businesses, regardless of vertical, when it comes to long tail or generalized keywords in which there may be conversion volume, you would only want to approach that if they align with your strategy, right? In other words, be specific where you need to be specific. I would say typically for high converting keywords, but you be broad where you know where you can be broad, right? And that's going to be for your long tail, your kind of maybe less competitive, lower cost keywords. I would say that every industry is going to have its particular benchmarks relative to the cost of match types. But again, this comes down to kind of finding that strategic blend, and ultimately I would say that it comes down to using the data in conjunction with their goals. Okay, if you go ahead and A/B test and find that your phrase matches for whatever reason are pulling a better conversion rate or a lower CPC, which can often be 2 completely different strategic focuses altogether, you're going to want to base your decisions off of that. So long story short, Broad Match Modifier, yes, it is a good kind of a middle ground approximation between broad or phrase, for example. But at the same time, I would always test and engage, to test and reiterate, test and reiterate. You have to work off of the data. If you don't work off the data, you're just guessing.
And I would add to that, pay very close attention to your search terms report so you can see what you're actually triggering for these keywords, and just continue to add the keywords as well as build up your negative list. Negative list is very, very important, so you should continuously build on that negative list as well.
Perfect, great. Hey, thanks, Krista, for the question. Karen's asking, do you group CTRs, click-through rate, do ad group click-through rates matter as far as quality score goes, or is it just the keyword tied to the ad served at the time of the search that matters?
Yeah, great question. So essentially, CTRs are really, I would say they're more tied to the granular level of the keyword, right? Now, while we are presented with an ad group level CTR, sort of as an approximation, an amalgam, if you will, of the keywords and ads contained within it. At the same time, it really does all come down to that keyword level, right? Quality scores at the keyword level. CTRs are really calculated bottom up from the keyword level. So that's the answer. Yep.
Perfect. Thanks. Kelly's asking, have you historically seen breaking out campaigns by match type at an ad group or campaign level has a positive effect on quality scores? And there's kind of a sub-comment to this. What is the biggest advice you would give for structuring localized accounts? So, for example, running multiple franchisees for a national brand.
Now, that is a fantastic question, probably the most difficult one out of the bunch that we've seen so far. So as far as breaking out campaigns or ad groups by match type, that's a build strategy that we often see. It's one methodology out of many. We see varying results with it. On one hand, you would almost think that it's covering all the bases, right? We're seeing every kind of iteration. And let's face it, sometimes within the AdWords interface, we have to almost kind of be forceful about how we present keywords, right? If you were to say put in lawyer versus lawyers, you are going to see two different keywords and two different sets of scores with that. Or if you put them out by, say here in a different ad group, we have, phrase match. Here's all our phrase match terms, and then here's all our broad match modifier terms in another. Yes, you are going to see different results. But at the same time, keep this in mind. For those phrase terms that are almost the same, or they are the same across match types, across ad groups, you're going to run into trouble because the traffic's going to be essentially sort of diluted between them. So we're going to be presented with kind of skewed information where we might have had all this traffic centered to one keyword, making it stronger, presenting us with a good quality score and a good CTR. Maybe we've watered it down across our match types, right? So while I have seen it work, typically for high budget accounts, I would be very careful with it. And again, I would be basically optimizing that thing by the daily. We don't want keywords that are going to be consistently running and accruing all of this skewed data. I would very quickly whittle those down to the ones that appear to be driving the most conversions. So to answer the question, yes, it is a strategy. The second part of the question, what biggest advice would we give for structuring localized accounts? Number one, this again comes back to target, geo-target area, and conversion goals. If you're structuring a local account, it has to be structured for the goals of the campaign. You have to know exactly what success looks like to you. Is it one phone call? Is it 13 phone calls? Is it 100 phone calls? Is it 1,000 phone submissions? This information is going to tie down to budget, right? Again, across any particular kind of advertising, whether it's a highway billboard sign or a TV commercial, let's face it, there's cost involved. You have to understand that going after this kind of, this is probably the most qualified kind of traffic we can go after, search traffic. So to answer this question, structuring, hyper-focused keywords, if you're limited in budget, that's especially true. What's the standard practices for number of ads per ad group? It would be 5 per ad group, I would say.
Yeah, 3 to 5 to start.
Exactly. What about keywords?
I would probably do 10 to start off with.
Exactly. So that kind of gives you a sense there. Breaking down your ad groups by your product focus. Let's say you've got 3 main areas of your company, and perhaps they're organized that way on your website as well. 3 different focus areas in your nav bar. Build the campaign to suit your website. I mean, that would be the absolute top advice that I would give. Match if you got keywords on your web page, hey, focus those right into the campaign. It should match directly.
Yeah, and I ran into some issues where I guess all of the campaigns were going to the same landing page. So sometimes that I would definitely recommend trying to build out landing pages per area, per franchise.
Big time.
Even if it's just a one-pager, I would definitely try to build it out separate and add in different landing pages, because that's probably one of the biggest issues that I've ran into is they all go to a corporate landing page, and it just doesn't make sense for tracking. So.
Great, thank you. Moving on, Sandra asks, what is the difference between setting automated bid rules versus implementing flex bid strategies?
They're keeping us on our toes here. So it's important to understand the differences between the two. Your flex bid strategies are advanced. They're essentially fine-tailored towards a specific goal, right? Such as obtaining, the highest ad position or a target CPA. There's several options there. Whereas your auto bid rules are more of an if-then scenario, right? If we fall below top spot, then the system kind of raises your bids accordingly, okay? But so as far as the question, what's the difference between setting it, they're for different situations, right? And I would generally say that if conversions are the goal, which in most cases that's what most people are after, without fail, you're always going to want to be going after your higher ad positions. We just see that as a common regardless of industry, regardless of vertical. You know, people like to search and be at the top. You know, find what's at the top of the page. You don't see people going page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to then, you know, click on an ad and go to a business. They want what they want, and they're going to, you know, go for those top spots. So.
Great, thanks. Sarah's asking, what extension type has the highest engagement rate?
Now that is a great question. Obviously, with all of the different extension types that are out there, this again is relevant to kind of what how an advertiser has fine-tuned their account. If let's say that mobile, you know, mobile phone calls and mobile engagement has been the goal, let's face it, the call extensions are going to be the prime focus there. So I imagine that the call extensions are going to be the most relevant strategy and probably the most successful one there. At the same time, if we're going after a more website-focused strategy, we want people clicking through, going to the page, seeing the product or whatever it is we're trying to sell on the page. In that case, the site links are going to be the focus there. As far as which one has the highest engagement rate over time, it is relative to industry. Let's say we have a mold campaign. Okay, in that case, it's going to be your call extensions. That's, you know, calls are driven in that industry very highly. It really just depends. I would actually kind of swing about and rephrase the line of thinking there. All of the extensions have a place, and if you're missing one, if you're not running one, if we're missing, say, location extension, we're missing out on a key opportunity to dig into that traffic. These extensions make your ad bigger. They take up more page real estate, resulting indirectly in higher CTR, resulting indirectly in higher click-through rates. A click to a location extension, say the get directions link, we can interpret that as interest in a physical location of a business. So long story short, use all the ad extensions. They're free. They're free additions to a standard cost per click. Why not use them and make your campaign perform that much better?
I 100% agree with Chetan. If it makes sense for your goals, use every type of extension that you can. Definitely.
Great, thanks guys. Next one, Vicky's asking, how should I test in-market audiences?
Excellent. So this is kind of a high-level display strategy. Essentially, in-market audiences, the whole thing of what this is about, it takes into account users with past conversion history, users that have, you know, all these cookies logged that are targeted narrowly by niche. The best strategy that I would have in regards to this would be to utilize in-market audiences targeting in combination with remarketing to drive highly qualified users to your site. Let's face it, if they've already been to your site, they're already qualified. They were already searching in focus of your niche. They reached your page. They checked you out. They saw your ad. And so using that in conjunction kind of with the auto data that we have using the media and market side, you know, that's very highly qualified traffic.
Excellent. Thanks. Thanks for the question, Vicky. Megan's asking, how important is it that I run remarketing campaigns for my clients? What are the key things I need to do?
Remarketing campaigns are highly important. I would say that there's a lot of people out there that are a little bit nervous to do display, but I would definitely recommend starting out with remarketing campaign. I really can't think of an industry that couldn't use remarketing campaigns. What you're essentially doing is these people already came to your website, so you're just continuously impressing upon them, staying at the top of their mind. You know, it is so important because you already know that they were interested. So just to kind of capitalize on that, what are the key things I need to do? My recommendations are, if you have an ad, do something to draw them back in. They're searching. They're looking at 3 and 4 websites. It's known that people now, they're informed buyers. They're searching 3 and 4 websites. So what can I do to kind of draw them back in? Make a creative image ad, a call to action, a sale, a promotion, something to kind of get them back over to your website, because the likelihood of them converting in the remarketing campaign is a lot higher because they are already there and they're still searching. So I would say remarketing campaigns are essential for every industry. And if you are nervous to do display, I would definitely recommend that you start with the remarketing.
Good, great advice. So we're going to keep going with a few more questions here. We're getting on into our hour. We've got about 7 more minutes I'm going to save for questions. And folks, I'll apologize right now. We got a ton of them coming through the question interface. We're not going to get to them all, but we're doing our best here. So let's keep rolling here. Richard's asking, how does the structure of my account affect automated bidding?
Sure. Automated bidding gets you the most clicks possible within budget. However, there are occasions where you may not simply want the most traffic possible. In these cases, the structure of your accounts really may not call for automated bidding, right? Again, if conversions are the goal, optimize for ad position. Yep.
Okay, great. I've heard I should avoid making frequent changes on automated bidding campaigns. Is that true? Why?
Great question. The general rule of thumb should be to optimize where needed. Now, when a campaign is running, particularly when it's first launched, it's accruing data. And what happens so many times is advertisers will run campaigns for a day or 2 days a week and not see conversions. They get click happy. Either they lose their patience and say it isn't working, or they start making too many changes, deleting keywords. Now, automated bidding, secret power is exactly that. It's automated. The automation is to do what it needs to do automatically to see results. So accordingly, you don't want to interrupt its process too often unless you have a good reason.
Great. So we've got a series of questions that people had asked and submitted on call tracking AdWords, and so I'm going to jump to those and see if we can get through those. The first one is, what benefits does call tracking provide when it comes to my AdWord campaigns? Mark's asking.
Okay, call tracking, essentially you're able to report the day, you're able to report the area code, you're able to report the duration of the phone call. It's important because you're tracking all your phone conversions through your AdWord performance. So it's just really an awesome addition to the AdWords campaign to really capitalize on all your conversions, whether they're coming through the phone or whether they're coming through a forum. However you're tracking them. What comes to mind is that me and my husband, he is the type of person that will pick up the phone in a heartbeat to call. So he would be a phone call conversion track. Me, I will fill out a form and I'll wait. So there are definitely two types of people, and you want to capitalize on both of them.
And let's face it, we can cover every base. You know, mobile phone calls, click-to-calls, calls from a landline on a website. We have that capability with website call conversion. We can cover every base with call tracking.
Perfect, great. Lisa's asking about, can I record the calls generated by AdWord campaigns?
Yep, so you can record the duration of the call, the area code, date, and time, but sadly not the exact conversation itself.
Okay.
And I would add to this that, you know, looking just at the duration of the call, you can kind of figure out a lot what's going on. It'll show you missed a call. So you can kind of see what's going on with the process. Why aren't people, who's not picking up the phone? You could see, oh, this was a long duration. Okay, well, there was a lot of engagement. There's a lot of questions being asked. So there is a lot to be said from the numbers that you're getting from the recording.
Yeah, not to mention with the power of offline conversion capability within AdWords, we can go a step further than recording the call. You can actually have your salespeople log the results of that call and import that manually into AdWords. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Doug's asking, in what countries does Google offer the call tracking feature?
Sure. Yeah. Essentially, that is the U.S. and Canada. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Next, John's asking, can I use a custom Google forwarding number to track my other online ads outside of AdWords?
No, Google's call forwarding numbers is specifically an AdWords reporting tool.
Got it. Perfect. Okay, thank you. Nancy, what are some best practices when it comes to Google forwarding numbers?
Sure. I think the number one best practice would be to have one. After that, obviously going in and tracking that data. If you don't have conversion metrics associated with the duration of your call, I highly recommend looking into that. That's more of an advanced thing. Obviously, let's face it. What we're tracking here is the calls that come through. I would also highly recommend, and this is kind of outside AdWords, but it is just sound business advice, is having some kind of post call flow to track exactly how those conversions play out. If a business doesn't have a line of sight in terms of how their incoming calls are converting, then the call tracking is really just half of the equation.
And I would also add on to that, if you are doing a call-only campaign, some suggestions that I have are to keep the keywords broad, and I would say to definitely a bid aggressively for the first position if you're doing a call-only campaign.
Great. Okay.
So to clarify, call-only campaign is when you're bidding for phone calls and you're not bidding for clicks, and what happens is when they click, it loads right up into the dialer. So that would be a main benefit of a call-only campaign.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we're going to get to one more question here, and then we're going to move on to the second set of the session, talking about some dashboard reporting, and we're going to really try to keep this on time and finish up at the top of the hour. So last question is coming from Terry. What are some success stories businesses have seen using call tracking with AdWords?
Yeah, absolutely. So we could talk about this for a little bit, but what I would mention here is if you go to adwords.blogspot.com. Now, this is an official AdWords blog. If you look up website call conversions, what you'll find there is a number of success stories that have been directly shared by customers. It's got a lot of great information there. That would be the most direct answer to kind of check those out. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And if you have any sort of emergency service or any sort of service like that, it is so essential to have a call-only campaign. I had a locksmith that did wonderful. He just loved us because essentially when you need a locksmith, what are you doing? You're looking on your phone.
There's like 100% conversion rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are definitely some industries that is a must.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so don't go anywhere, anybody. I've got a couple of announcements to make, and then we're going to move into dashboards briefly. First, I want to say a big thank you first to all of you who submitted your questions. We really appreciate it, and a huge thank you out to Chetan and Marta for being on today's call and answering all the questions for us.
Thank you. Bye now.
Yeah, so thanks, guys. Thanks very much. I think you're going to log off here, and we're just going to move on to the second session here, or second part real quickly here. So thanks very much.
Have a good one.
All right, so the next part of the presentation deals with AdWords as well, but it's more around the dashboard reporting. And to get into that, it's really dashboard reporting for marketing agencies. This is specific for marketing agencies. And so if you're not an agency on this call right now, you'll still find this interesting, but I am speaking more to the agencies that are on the call. What I want to show you here is, actually, before I jump into it, I should give you a little bit of preface here as far as ActiveDEMAND. ActiveDEMAND, we're actually a call tracking and marketing automation platform that are built specifically for marketing agencies. You may have heard JumpDemand. JumpDemand is the company. ActiveDEMAND is the product. So just to give you a little bit of background information and be fully disclosed here, this is who we are. And what I want to show you is a dashboard that one of our customers has created, and I had to modify it a little bit. I had to take out some of the detailed information, so you'll see there's some blurred lines, and the partner is not SmartBrain. That this is a fake logo, but the data and the report is real. And what I want to show you here, the reason I'm showing you this campaign, or this dashboard, is there's a real challenge from a marketing agency's perspective to be able to report to clients effectively, to really show them the value that you as agencies are delivering to them. I've worked for agencies for quite a while. I've had to do a lot of reporting, and I know when I do my reporting, it has traditionally, many years ago, been done at month's end, and I'm compiling a lot of different data, trying to figure out, what works well, putting the reports together, submitting those, explaining them to the client, and making sure they're feeling the love and getting the value. And so this is a report that actually comes straight out of the ActiveDEMAND platform that one of our agency clients is using. And what you'll see right off the bat is pretty standard information. None of you on the call are new to AdWords, and so a lot of this stuff, makes sense. You can see what your impressions are, your click rates, your cost per click, these sorts of things, and it's all good data. It's a good snapshot, see what's going on. The other element that comes out of this is the clicks by device, and this is particularly important, and it's becoming even more and more critical with the rise in mobile, which is now exceeding desktop searches. But you can see from here that clearly a lot of the traffic is coming from mobile, which means there needs to be a good effort put into the mobile strategy when it comes to AdWords and how you configure them for mobile. You can see which ones also come off of the computer and laptops, and then a smaller portion with the tablets. once you look at kind of this main overview, you can start actually drilling down more into the campaign performance as well as the ad group performance. Again, you can see your different campaigns, you can see your clicks, your cost per click, and this can be interesting if you're speaking to the right client in your company, where they like to drill into those details and understand exactly what's going on. You've got the ad groups, which is a very similar type of report, and then finally you can even drill into your keyword performance. Now, you can get this all out of Google AdWords. That's not a problem, and you can build your reports like we talked about. One area that that this particular client is going in is taking things a lot further. He knows that his client, he needs to show that he's doing the activity and spending their Google AdWords money, and he's doing a good job at that. But he has to prove something to their bottom line, that it's actually having a direct impact on their business. And so something that they're doing is really focusing on the call tracking of their advertising. And this is something that we just spoke about at the end of the Q&A as we drilled into the call tracking questions and the importance behind tracking calls. What you'll see here in this first chart is the number of phone calls. The number of phone calls and their sources, and I'm sorry, I had to blur it out. I can't disclose this information, but I can tell you generally what it's saying. The orange right here, the majority of these were coming from AdWords. It was AdWords converting on calls. The green is from websites. The yellow has been some other online advertising that this particular agency is doing for their client. And then there's a lot of other miscellaneous places where they're getting phone calls. And so what's really nice about this is that you're able to track all of your phone calls, understanding exactly what's generating the call. And it's not just Google AdWords that you're measuring here. It's any online and even offline campaign that this agency is actually measuring and able to see what is performing and not performing. So they've got it set up where they do call tracking on absolutely every single campaign and know exactly what's going on, and this gives them a good overview as far as what's working. Taking it even more into more detail, and this is interesting. This starts to become very interesting for the client themselves. And what this is it's a log of all the phone calls that were made from the different campaigns. And each one actually is recorded. You can actually listen to each phone call. If you click the button, it'll open up a little audio player and you can listen to the call. And this has become extremely appreciated by clients, not marketing agencies, but the clients of marketing agencies, because what happens is the sales managers and marketing managers, they'll actually go in and listen to the calls. They'll listen to the calls, understand the conversation, and they look for areas to improve, to increase the opportunities for finding opportunities and also closing sales. And just to give you an example, the other day I was listening to some of the calls that had come in to us at ActiveDEMAND, and we had some really good calls come in, people asking great questions, but our people taking the call, they weren't asking any questions back, and they didn't push for asking if they'd like a demo or trying to move them down that sales funnel. And so there was a perfect opportunity there for me to go and speak with the person and say, hey, when we get into this situation, we can look at doing it this way. So there's all the call recording. Now, like I say, people really do appreciate this sort of thing, but what's even more appreciated is when we get into looking at the actual analytics of the conversation. And this is something that that a lot of people are starting to do, where when you talk about call tracking, a lot of people feel call tracking is counting the number of calls, understanding the duration, where they came from, this sort of thing. And that is true. But there's another whole component to it, and it's conversation analysis, where the platform is listening to the conversation to understand what the conversation is about. And based on that, you can do different things with that particular lead or call. It can be it could be lead scored and sent to the sales team. It could be determined that it was an unqualified call, that it was a wrong number, that it was just someone, a tire kicker, not really, there's no opportunity there. And with call tracking, or what we call call forensics, it's all an automated thing that starts allowing marketing agencies to really deliver value to their clients with no effort, because it's just tied into the call tracking platform and it measures everything. The last section that this agency reports on when it comes to call tracking is just simply the volume by hour of the day and then day of the week. They let their clients know exactly what they're seeing for call volume, and that helps them with some staffing to make sure people are available and calls are being answered. The other thing which the clients really enjoy, and this is something that's built into the platform, is just this map view that you can drill into, and you can actually see from a geographic perspective exactly where the different activities are happening. And if you can read this on the side, this actually doesn't just do calls, it does everything. It's got your phone call, it's got your, if you've got pop-up ads going, if you've got a live chat, if you've got the forms, different link clicks, email opens, everything. It gives you a good visual overview of what's going in, and you can actually drill in and click on icons and it'll give you the specific details. So there's just a couple more sections, widgets to this report, and these are in my opinion, the most important. If you remember, we started out this report with talking about the AdWords and looking at an overview there, drilling into some details, driving into the call tracking, just because call tracking leads tend to be about 5 to 10 times more qualified than a form submit. So we look at that sort of thing. The last section is really coming down to attribution. And attribution isn't anything new. For those of you not totally familiar with it, attribution is the ability to understand what resulted in a specific action. So for example, if a sale occurred, what caused that sale to occur in the first place, or what, it could be multiple activities. And this one is really important to business owners. So our marketing agency customer is reporting to the high level guys in his account, the business owner, the VPs, and showing them this sort of information. So if you're an AdWords person, right here, this is typically what you would be reporting on. This is all that the higher up guys would be seeing. When you look at the whole picture, though, there's lots more going on from a marketing agency perspective. So this orange section right here, I can tell you right now, it's all Google. So this segment here is the cost per click for Google, and this is the organic results coming through. And these are people converting on their website. And a conversion in this particular case was someone filling out a form, downloading a white paper, taking an ebook, watching a webcast, a number of those things. And you can see exactly all the sources that's driving these conversions. And this is where reporting has to go to, or is going to, for marketing agencies when it comes to reporting to their clients, is what impact is the agency having on the business of their clients. And this is such a huge, huge report. And this is so beautiful here for this agency because it's all dynamically generated and pulled out of the ActiveDEMAND platform. The last widget on this report is looking at the leads funnel, which is, everybody needs to be watching their leads and understanding what their pipeline looks like. And the ActiveDEMAND platform does that for the agencies on behalf of their clients, where here you can see new leads. So in November so far, they've pulled in 1,273 new, I'm going to say contacts, people they didn't know existed, and they've come in and they've done some sort of a conversion. 611 people actually met the requirements of being a lead. And so they became a sales-ready lead. It was passed on to sales, and they work with them. And then there's a whole bunch of claim leads. The reason the number is so high here is this particular client had a backlog of leads they weren't claiming over a couple of months period, and they've gone in and cleaned that all up. And right now they actually only have 32 unclaimed leads. And this is the sort of reporting that is so critical to clients, and the reason is it impacts the bottom line of their business. And when you show them this sort of reporting, particularly this one, if all you're doing is showing them the CPC, you can be replaced extremely easily. They can go find another AdWords person to go and do their AdWords if they don't like working with you or they question your results. If you show them this whole picture here, they are going to have a really, really tough time even thinking about going to another agency, let alone they're going to want to do more business with you. And for those of you that are running retainer businesses, increase the retainers. So that's a little bit of the dashboard reporting. This is just one example of what this agency is doing. There's actually a ton of widgets and different ways of configuring the dashboards. You set it up, it generates automatically, it sends out whenever you want. So that's all I'm going to say about the dashboards. I'm just going to jump into one last slide here. It wouldn't be complete. We're all marketers. We get it. We have to have a call to action. Here's the call to action. So make note here. If you do want to try out ActiveDEMAND, which I hope you do, I suggest jumping on to our website. It's just ActiveDEMAND.com. And there's two options. Well, there's a few options, but there's two options I think you should look at. One is the call tracking side of the platform. It's ActiveDEMAND call tracking. It's free for the account. No monthly fees. You set it up. You can go in there and you can play with it and start seeing what the call tracking is about as you tie it into your AdWords as well as your different online and offline campaigns. The second one is an actual agency market. We call it ActiveDEMAND Agency Marketing, and there's a 14-day trial on that. You do not need to enter a credit card for any of those things. You can go in there and just submit your information. You cannot use a Gmail account. I'll tell you that right now. You need to use your agency account. Otherwise, it won't activate. Use your agency account, and you can go in there and play with it, and you can start to see how you can create those dashboards, just like I was showing you in the earlier slide. Now, to sweeten the deal, if you sign up for either one of these accounts, I've got a $25 credit to give you to go against your call tracking account. The account is free itself. However, you do need to register numbers, and there is a fee for that. It's not very much, just a few dollars, but I'll give you $25 to get started on that. $25 is a ton to just let you play with it and actually use it on a few campaigns and see how it works. To get the $25, you need to email me. It doesn't automatically kick in, so you just need to email me at brian.neufeld@activedemand.com. Send me that saying, give me my $25, and I'll log into your ActiveDEMAND account, and I'll credit your account with the $25. So please take some time and check that out. I think you'll find it a huge value. So now it really is the end of the presentation. I'm 1 minute over. I started 2 minutes late, and I apologize again for that. I want to say a huge thank you before you jump off for attending it. We do have a quick 5-question survey that's going to pop up when you exit the webinar. If you could please just take a moment to fill that out. It's just asking what kind of value you got from this session and how the presenters were, and it just helps us to improve for next time. So please, if you could just take a moment to do that. Again, I'll leave this screen up for a little while if you want to jot down my email address and take advantage of that $25 credit on the call tracking account. So that's it, folks. I appreciate your time a ton. I hope you got value out of it. We run these sessions on a monthly basis, so look for other ones in the future, and I hope to see you online. Right now, I'm going to close things down, but I will leave this slide up. So have yourselves a great rest of the day. Bye, everyone.